This is the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching and publishing services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Scott Baker, author of the Vampire Hunters series. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Paul. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, are you ready to get started?
Yes, I am.
All right, question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
I would give them the advice, don't give up. Being a writer is the most demoralizing, frustrating job you can have. But it's worth it. If you're doing it because you love writing, if you're doing it because you love storytelling, stick with it. It eventually comes to you. I've been writing horror for 15 years, and it took me about 4 years to get published. And, for that 4 years, I was told, I was thinking to myself, oh, this is never going to work. Why am I wasting my time? And I had a lot of really good mid-list authors tell me, your writing is good, your writing is solid, it's coming. Just stick with it. And that's the best I can say. And even when you do get published, don't expect to, be the next Stephen King or J.K. Rowling overnight. It sometimes takes years to build up that reputation, to build up that following. So my advice is just stay with it. If you love writing, enjoy the writing.
And Scott, did you go through a traditional publisher?
Not really. If you're talking the mainstream publishers, no. Because mainstream publishers, they were interested in sparkly vampires that dated teenage girls, or they were more interested in the type of vampires that wanted to live in society. My books were pure horror. They were bad vampires feeding off of humans, other humans trying to kill them. What I did was I went the indie publishing route. And back then it was a lot different because there were only a few legitimate independent publishers. Now there's a lot more independent publishers, and they're really good. I've worked with 2 or 3 that have, to me, they've been as good, if not better, to work with than some of the mainstream publishers.
Excellent. What do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
I think the hardest part is getting the realistic expectations for your book. Everybody wants to be published with Tor. Everybody wants to be published with the big names. You may not have the book that fits into that. You may have to look around for some of the smaller publishing houses that specialize in your type of genre. And another thing to consider, which when I started writing was the kiss of death, now it isn't, is self-publishing. It's very. I've self-published my 2 anthologies and 2 of my books and a novella, and it's very time-consuming. You got to put a lot of work into it. You've got to go out and hire editors to review the books and go through them professionally. You got to hire good cover artists, but it is an alternative today. But you have to figure out which publishing route is the best for the story or novel that you're writing.
I couldn't agree more with you. I started publishing my own books 3 years ago, and by the time we got the 13th book down, obviously we had a system, everything worked out well, and then we're able to help our clients get published as well. And that's one of the main things I tell prospective clients is there's nothing in particular that's difficult about getting published. And if you want to go your own route and do it yourself, the challenge is just all the little itty-bitty pieces that go along with that. As you mentioned, finding an editor, a formatter, your book cover design, because there's so many different facets with that where nothing's difficult, but it's just so many little things that you have to get done.
And once you've done the first self-published book or two, it becomes so much easier. I mean, I have a go-to crew. I've got a formatter whenever I need to format, or whenever one of my close friends or my wife needs a formatter. I just call him up, send the book in, pay him, he sends it back. I've got 2 or 3 people I go to for covers, depending on what type of cover I like. It gets to the point, it's just as easy self-publishing as it is using Word or Excel. Actually, it's probably easier than using Excel.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, so once you get that first book out of there, it gets so much easier. It's just like riding a bike. It gets better and better and better as we progress.
Yeah, and what I do like about self-publishing is, for a marketing aspect, I can do what I want with it. If I decide I want to do a promo for a week and give the book away, I can do it. If I want to sell the Kindle version for 99 cents, I can do that. Sometimes when you're with a publisher, they don't want to cut the price, so it's very hard for you to market and do promotionals if you're at the beck and call of the publisher.
Yeah, and that's what I've found too, is just having the freedom, and especially if you're writing a nonfiction, if you're promoting a business or a service, you have so much more control over it. And if something you do want to change, you can make those changes on the fly, versus if you went through a traditional publisher, they might not necessarily want you to promote, as much on the back end. Plus, even if they do, it's going to take weeks or even months to get those updates done.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree.
Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that has worked well for you.
I think the best marketing strategy, now saying this, I know people are different. I love going to conventions. I know authors who hate them. They're introverts. Some people, love doing email flyers, or they love doing videos. Others don't. But I think whatever marketing route and promoting route you follow, you need to have a base of support. And I'm not talking necessarily the fan base. I'm talking fellow authors. I'm finding I'm having a lot of success. I write a young adult post-apocalypse series with Burning Willow Press. I write those books under a different name, Josh Matthews. And what we've been doing is, several of the authors have been getting together, and we're sharing tweets, we're sharing posts. When one of us has a new book coming out, we all agree to read the book, provide reviews of the book, provide blurbs for the jacket cover. When we have the book release parties, we all agree to, if we're available, go and take a half hour or an hour and market our own books as well as the book being released. And you do build up a rapid following. I found it to be the most successful, because if somebody is reading one of the authors who's helping you and likes their work, and that author's saying, hey, you got to read Scott's book, he's pretty good, you're automatically going to start picking up new readers. And as a sort of corollary to that, you need to be out there on Facebook pages for your genre, on Goodreads, various areas. You don't want to go out there pimping your book. Nobody wants to go onto like a Facebook horror writers page and see nothing from you but buy my book, buy my book. You'll lose sales. But if you're out there, if you're chatting with them, if you're joking with them, if you're commenting on, hey, did you see this horror movie? Yeah, I like it. Helping other writers if they've got questions, you start to build that following. And that's what's going to get you the biggest, that's what's going to build your fan base. That's what's going to get you the sales. That's what's going to get your name out there.
Well, and you bring up a great strategy with the cross promotions with other authors. Now, does that also include your lists as well? So we email your list and cross promote the other authors too?
Well, I don't have a mailing list. That's been one of the things I've been toying with. Is I know a lot of authors who do have them, and they tell me they don't work. I have a lot of author friends who have them, and they say it's very successful. I've been weighing the time committed to doing the email list to writing and marketing. It's something I'm probably going to do later this year, but at the moment I don't have the email list. What we do is we set up our own little Facebook page. It's a private page where we post our tweets on it. And then what happens is, like, once a day we go through, call up the tweets and share them on our Twitter accounts.
Well, and you bring up a great point with the lists, when if other people do share on their list as well, because the thing is, it also depends how engaged those readers are with that author. And what I found is, if they're fairly engaged with them, then when you do cross-promotional deals like this, it does work well. But you're right, on the flip side, if they're not engaged in that group, if they haven't been regularly sending emails out, then it definitely is a much tougher challenge with that.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk.
I mean, it is very tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can definitely.
Go ahead.
No, you're fine. You're fine. No, I was just saying it's that definitely is a challenge. I think it really does come down to engagement. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yes, it does. You know, you have to be out there. I've always noticed, like, when I go to horror conventions and book conventions, I don't sell a lot of books at the convention, but for the next week, I see a lot of books being sold on Amazon. Mm-hmm. Because people meet you, they talk to you, they like you, you laugh with them, you joke with them, and, you know, they go out and they give your book a shot. And then hopefully if they like it, they go out there and leave a review.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Whenever I do motivational talks or I'm talking about publishing, I always notice a spike for usually 3 to 5 days anytime after I've spoken at an event that I see that. It might not necessarily happen the first day, but you do definitely notice an increase within the next few days after that.
What I do is I take all of my books and I make little postcards. And on the front is the cover of the book. On the back is a blurb about what the book is about. And then I have the QR code that, you know, all you have to do is scan it into your phone and it takes you right to the Amazon page where the book is.
That is a great strategy.
Yeah, you know, you make it as easy as possible for your fans and your readers to find the books, and, you know, the easier it is, the more likely they are to say, yeah, I'll give it a shot.
Absolutely. Well, let's transition a little bit. I'd like to ask you about your favorite book. So what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you have learned from it?
I would say probably one of my favorite books is also one of the books that really influenced my decision to write horror. As a kid, I loved reading horror. But back then, there wasn't much in new horror. I read all the old classics. I read sci-fi by Wells and Burns. You know, for horror, I was reading Stoker. I was reading Shelley, Poe, Lovecraft. And then for my 10th Christmas, my mother bought me this book she found by Graham Masterton called The Manitou. And it was about this Indian medicine man who committed suicide and then comes back. He's born on a woman's back, comes out in a hospital and starts taking vengeance on the white man for what we did to him. And it was bloody. It was gory. It was terrifying. And I spent 2 nights staying up all night reading it. And it influenced me because I realized that, you know, yes, you can write blood and guts. You can write gore as long as you write a suspenseful story with it, as long as there's good characters, as long as you're writing it not for the sake of the blood and guts, but the blood and guts are part of what drives the horror of the story. And ever since then, I've just been hooked on modern horror.
Well, and you share a great point with that, using those things as a tool versus the hook.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about your favorite quote. So what is your favorite quote and why?
My favorite quote, and I don't know who said it, but I remember reading once on one of the writers' Facebook pages, "Writers write." And it struck me because it is so true. I think the biggest advice I've given to aspiring writers is just get out there and write. It doesn't matter if it's good. I belonged, when I was starting out, to several writers groups, and most of the people in those groups were wannabes that never actually made the leap. They had notebooks filled with outlines and plot developments and character developments, and the sci-fi and the fantasy people had notebooks filled with the new world and the histories of the world. That's nice, but if you're not actually sitting down and writing, what good is it? I'm always writing. I don't write every day. When I'm working on a project, I give myself a goal of 10,000 words a week. So if I'm lazy during the week, if I come home from work one night and I'm too tired to write, I do it the next day. And then Friday night, if I've hit the 10,000 or gone over, I've reached my goal, so I can enjoy the weekend. If I haven't reached the goal, I've got 2 more days to get caught up. And I find it works very well. You know, it takes me less than 3 months to write a novel. And when I start writing and I get in that groove, I write. I find myself, I can do 15,000, 20,000 words a week. But writers, they do have to write. You don't have to like what you write. You don't have to think it's good. You can go back and revise it. You can throw it out if you want to. But if you're not writing every day, you're not a writer.
Yeah, it's all about developing that habit and sticking to it every single day.
And you hone the skill. You know, it's like a sport. It's like cooking. It's like anything. If you're not doing it every day, you're not getting better at it.
I agree completely. Well, Scott, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
The best way to find me online is my Facebook page, Scott M. Baker, Author. And you'll know it's me because there'll be a picture of me. My profile photo is a picture of me with the big CIA logo in the background. I used to work for them for 23 years. And that's the page where I post a lot of my stuff. And then from there, you can find my Twitter account. You can find my website. But if you find my Facebook page, that's where I post everything. That's where I post interesting stuff, writing related, and, you know, news about upcoming books and that.
And Scott, what is your website?
My website is Scott M. Baker Author, one word, .blogspot.com. Now, I do admit I don't post on my website as much as I should, but the website does have links to all my books and has links to all my social media.
Excellent. Well, Scott, I want to thank you once again for being a guest on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thank you very much. And for all the aspiring writers out there, keep it up. Just, you know, if you quit, you're never going to get published.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how to get your book published with a proven system that works, grab a free copy of my book at getpublishedpodcast.com.